Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about a big camera that is Canon EOS R5C. So let's dive right into it. Now this R5C matters a lot simply because Canon generally have bit too many series, but each series have a unique use case. For example, everything other than the C is basically a photo camera and it can does video as an extra add-on, not as a core function. Now C series is a completely different lineup. It's like I can't do anything but photo, but video I got your back. Now this is the first time again in recent times where R5C have been combined, meaning they have combined best of both worlds. For example, they have taken everything they have learned, experienced and built from C series and from R series and put them into one body. That's why this two-letter categorization is very important. Now how this was done? Well, they took R5. If you have experience with R5, that's it. Control C, Control V, R5. Now they have changed the internals in terms of adding a heat sink, huge heat sinks plus a fan. Now you have to be mindful. The R5 was amazing in terms of its performance, its capability. Everything was quite good. However, reality was the processor was like, dude, I'm cooking, and I do not know why they did not add any heat sink or heat soak in basically the camera body. Consequence, it overheated. So even if it can do amazing things like 8K 30 fps or raw internal recording, it cannot actually sustain it. And DIY Perks, a YouTuber, he opened it up, put a aluminum plate, just a plate is as a heat soak basically, and put it back on. Camera could now record. Now if you did that kind of modification, you still had another 30 minutes of recording limits. So reality was there was a lot of limitation in that camera, some design flaws like not having a good heatsink material. This time they have solved all of that. However, with that they have also refined the camera in certain ways. For example, if you have paid attention to Netflix camera requirement, you have only noticed that one mirrorless there, that is Panasonic GH1 I'm saying, basically Panasonic mirrorless system. Now why is that? Well, the reality is Netflix and many other basically online platforms and almost any professional serious series, they will ask you, hey, please have time code. This puppy adds time code, and I do not mean time code going through audio interface, a dedicated time code package delivery system. This puppy has that. Now time code is very important in any sort of serious professional or long duration work. Now again, if you're like, hey, I'm using a normal camera, I'm gonna record directly to the camera, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're like, hey, I have, let's say, a field recorder which has like multiple tracks, let's say 4 or 5 people talking, and the video is gonna be long, trying doing that without a time code is like, good luck with that. It's gonna drift and you're gonna be crazy about it. So they have added time code. They have added digital hot shoe simply because the old generation, old as in like R5, did not had any electronics contacts here. They have extra electronical contact here, so they can transfer basically power and digital data. So now you can also buy a basically microphone adapter that will allow you to have two RJ jacks and basically two full-size mic jacks and dump data directly to this without needing any external power. So it has digital and it also has tally light. Now that is a very small improvement but does matter a lot, and because this is directly taken from C series, the tally light is not basic tally light, it's like not on and off. It also has some extra functions where it can blink and it can indicate to you, hey, either you are running out of power or you're running out of space, meaning shut down your shoot as quickly as possible. So that is really awesome. So these are the three major improvements. Basically they have added time code, really priceless, and I'm pretty sure after a few months this will be now added to Netflix series. And digital hot shoe, again, if you need it, if you need that pro microphone input, really priceless. And tally light, really good quality of life improvement. So what they have done is basically taken two independent firmwares, quote unquote, and plonked them into one puppy. Now because they have done that, basically two different firmwares, they need to switch between them. It's not as fast as every other camera company, where even it's R5, basically R5 can go from video to photo very quickly. This cannot do that. So that's why you will notice the switch has two toggle position: photo, off, video. So you cannot go from video to photo, you cannot go from photo to video, you have to go to off first, and then it will flush the memory. Now after they have solved overheating issue and removed the time limit, that was another issue. It's like, yeah, even if like someone like basically DIY Perks or any Tom, Dick and Harry who added an extra fan to the camera, they can solve the overheating issue, but they cannot do anything about basically time limitation. So they have removed the time limit, and in improved firmware, now they have let the basically processor go YOLO. It's like, hey, go YOLO on it. So if you could do 30 FPS, if you can do 60 FPS, do 60 FPS. Now this puppy can do 60 FPS, 8K raw internal recording, and it will generate boatload of heat. That's why it has a basically huge heat sinks and huge fan. So you don't have to worry about it. And because there is no time limit, you will only be run out because of your memory card limitation. You can power this puppy from external power delivery, so it can record until your memory card stays full. So that's R5C. Now, for whom this puppy was made? Well, the reality is this is way too powerful, as in like god tier powerful. This is a full frame camera. Full frame video cameras only became popular very recently. And yes, it was true, like many of the cinema cameras, when they moved to digital, they moved to basically 16 millimeter kind of series, or like APS-C kind of scenario. It was not because they did not like full frame, it was like they could not afford a full frame. Once silicon technology developed enough, now every Tom, Dick and Harry wants full frame. Or in case of RE, they went even bigger, as in like huge medium format, which is like 65 millimeter. That was used for shooting Endgame and Infinity War. So you get the point. Like everybody wants big sensor if you can afford it. Even Joker was shot on huge sensors. And again, if you pay attention to depth of field, you're like, yeah, that's a huge sensor. Because yes, you can fake it with a, like, you know, this lens or that lens, but like again, if you have a big sensor with big aperture lens, there is a different feel to it, and every Tom, Dick and Harry wants that. Now this does that full frame 8K raw at 60 FPS. There is almost nothing that can even come close to this at $4.5K, meaning around $4,500. Nothing that comes close to this, and with quality autofocus. You can say, oh, Blackmagic can do this or that. It's like, or maybe you only need 4K and like you are happy with raw, and again, you may be happy with that, but it will not have a quality autofocus. So reality is nothing can come this sort of horsepower this quickly, because while there are many amazing cameras for 4K at this price point, which does not have overheating issues, which does not have this, many of them do not have time code input, many of them do not have the ability to scale up to 8K if you need to, or flat out they do not have good autofocus. So this whole system that I'm going to give you, this mind-boggling system, there is no limitation. So this is basically C series. That's why it's important. It is a video camera without limitation. It's not like, oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that. No, it's like, go YOLO on it. Do whatever the heck you want. That is amazing. So if you have any investment in Canon system, be it its old glass where you have EOS series lenses, be it R series lenses, it's a very stable choice where you can just like plonk it right down. You don't have to worry too much about it, and it's not too goddamn expensive. It's like, it's cheaper than surprisingly large amount of mirrorless camera that can even claim to touch 8K. So it's surprisingly cheap, and you have to have one compromise, because they removed the IBIS. Now again, it may sound bad, it's like, hey, why they are removing IBIS, but reality is any Tom, Dick and Harry who's doing videos seriously for professional level, most of them rely on external gimbals, because you can control external gimbal far more reliably, and gimbals will never give you that wobbly, that corner is like, you know, wobbling, which became a kind of meme with R5, because IBIS was good, it was stabilizing the hell out of it, but it was like rotating too much, so corner was like wing 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 wing. So many people don't like that, and again, you will never find a red camera or RE camera with IBIS for that reason, because if you are serious about it, you will use external system, gimbal, or like, you know, motion arms and things of that nature, shoulder rigs, things of this nature. And in those sort of scenario, having IBIS actually backfires for you, because if you're trying to stabilize from 2 data points, computer will like, should I move the sensor left, or should I move the sensor right, or should I let it be? And because it's magnetically floating, it can never be like locked down. So that's the issue. That's why they had to let go of IBIS. Again, it may make it a bit difficult for like people who wanted to run and gun with that, but gimbals are becoming lightweight enough and powerful enough nowadays that it can be manageable. It's like a little bit of issue that you have to do. And in terms of low budget videography, it can take care of it all. Unless you need very specific high speed shooting, for example, there is still a reason why people buy phantom cameras. Again, if you want to like do true slow motion recording for like even at like 250 fps or 1000 fps at 4K with quality video output, you have to use proper video cameras that are built for that. Not even Red or RE can do that. You need phantom cameras for that. Other than that, this puppy can do almost everything. And yes, it is true that you can buy Red that can go up to 16-bit RAW, you can buy RE that can go up to 16-bit RAW, but be mindful, most of the time 8-bit is the problem. 10-bit more than good enough. 12-bit, you're talking like almost every delivery platform, like you got this. At 12-bit RAW, you're good, like you got this. 16, yeah, it's a good to have, but again, it's not that much. So 16 is not that much, simply because again, display output technology is not that good enough at this point in time. So flat out, this camera can do everything. If you are getting bad issues with camera, meaning let's say you are not happy with the color that it's rendering, either your lens is not good, or maybe you have crappy light. This has happened. That's why, especially with LED lights, is you need very high quality LED light to get a true quality lights, or you have to use incandescent bulbs. If you are suffering with that, that could be the issue. But if you are having issue with this camera, the problem is with you. So that is mind-bogglingly different level of problem. That at $4,500 you have a camera that's like buy and forget. The camera will not be a limitation for you, and anytime it's like, oh, I want like 500 fps or 700, yeah, you have to buy a high-speed camera for that. Like nothing else can also do it. So that is mind-boggling. You have any investment in Canon system, buy this and you will never have any issue with video system. Heck, right now even YouTubers can buy this because it's not too ludicrously expensive, does not have overheating issues, and you can just like, hey, I'm shooting at 4K, and tomorrow something, let's say YouTube jumps to 8K, you're like, okay, my camera can already do it, no problem. So be mindful, it's quite amazing for that. So this is a very game-changing aspect, simply because no one can even come close to it. For example, truly saying 8K camera, neither Nikon, Canon, basically even Canon R series, other R series cameras, and Sony and Panasonic, none of them can even come close to it. All other cameras are way too expensive, meaning Z9 too expensive, Sony Alpha 1 too expensive, Ronin 8K too expensive. That's the reality of it, or nothing can come close to it. And if you compare Nikon and Sony, both of them have way too many limitations, meaning none of like one cannot do proper raw, one cannot do 60 fps. So you get that point. And they have other issues also, meaning they will overheat over time. Now again, Nikon will not, simply because it's too huge. Sony will, again, if you do it like 2-3 hours. So they have limitations and they have higher price. So Canon's approach here is like, okay, I'm gonna undercut all of you and I'm gonna overperform all of you by a huge margin. That is a very big thing, and this is the first time you can truly say this is true all-in-one hybrid camera, meaning it can do photo competently, meaning it's good photo camera. It can do video competently. It's a good video camera. Now the only side effect is that because it's flashing the whole firmware, flashing as in like it's changing from one to another, it does have slow changeover, meaning if you have these camera, you can go from recording photo to recording video very quickly and backwards very quickly. This puppy, it will take 8 to 10 seconds, so be mindful of that. So if you are seeing something fancy and you're like, I'll take some photo, I think I should switch to video, it will take some time. So it does require a bit of foresight in your hand in order to yield it properly. Otherwise you may find yourself, it's like, oh, I something interesting on that, tuk, why my camera is off. Yeah, it will take time. You have to be mindful, 8 to 10 seconds, and it may have bit slower autofocus performance. Now be mindful, slower autofocus of Canon is still Canon autofocus, still reliable, but people are saying it's more closer to C70 rather than like R series camera. R series is like photographic camera, so the autofocus algorithms is really fast, it's very snappy. It's designed for ludicrously high motion. But when you are making a cinema camera, nobody in cinema actually uses autofocus. Most of the time they have focus puller, as an individual whose sole job is just to pull focus. So that's a different kind of world case. So even if they add autofocus, it's more like just framing your shot, like giving some push and pull. So it's not as refined as R series. So that may be an issue. Now it may be just simply because every other review that I'm seeing right now is early post-production, pre-production models. It may be fixed in the firmware. So be mindful of it, but do not be surprised in tomorrow if you find out it's like, dude, it's not matching my R5 in terms of autofocus in video. It may be an issue because the C series does not have that kind of robust autofocus algorithm as R series does. Now again, still Canon autofocus, still good, but be mindful. And then changeover, you have to be mindful, especially if you are a wedding hybrid photographer, you have to be aware of this. But this is a true camera that no other camera can come close, and anything that even tries to come close is too expensive and too limited. So this was a very smart move from Canon side, and recently I made a video about that Canon is shutting down their DSLR division, and they have already shut down their EF lens division. So that does create an issue. Why they are doing this? Well, reality is money. No, people are not buying cameras as they used to, and this idea of like I'm segregate everything to every other model and having 10,000 garbage models is like, no. People are getting fed up of that, and there are many new small scale startup who are like creating cinema cameras that are like surprisingly good, surprisingly close to even Reds. Again, not badass, but like very close. And if you are good enough with your equipment, you can get surprisingly close results. So reality is Canon had to do something. the market is shrinking, Canon had to do something, and Sony is a big enough threat at this point in time. So what they did, that leapfrogging, like flat out beating every other camera in video, mirrorless camera, it's mind-bogglingly amazing. But they have removed a lot of small, basically pro level features, which can be classified as what you call creature comfort. So in sometimes it's like, dude, that's a necessary feature, but that's up to you. You may need it, you may not need it, but they have removed that. Now benefit of that is like, if people ask that, now they're like, dude, this is a very cheap camera, you want this sort of performance, you have to pay $10,000 for our C series models. You get that. Now what are the missing features here? Well, pro level feature, gen lock. Now gen lock is very expensive feature, not because the feature is expensive, it's because like camera companies do not want to give you that. Like the cheapest camera I have found is Panasonic, that gives you it around $2,000. Every other camera company is like $10,000, $20,000 for that. Now gen lock is bigger brother of time code. Time code is just a metadata that is storing with the video file. Gen lock, it's triggering event, meaning internal clock of all this basically camera would be disconnected, and frame shutters, like take a shot now, that will be done external. Benefit, you can have two cameras. For example, let's say in movie 300, they had a high-speed camera on top, and they had a wide-angle camera, normal shooting here, and they had a mirror that was like doing transfer. But here's the deal, how will you sync that? You can't sync that unless you have gen lock, because gen lock triggers the frame shot every reliably. Same was done by James Cameron when he was using 3D for basically whole movie, basically Avatar. And the reason for that was like, you had two cameras, they had to trigger sensor very quickly. Now what will happen if you try a time code? It will work for first few seconds, it will work, but soon you will find that shutters are doing like this. They are still in sync, but they're like, this started first, this started after. Started first, it will give very bad headaches. So VR, if done without gen lock, it's really painful for the viewer. And gen lock, again, technology wise, it's not as expensive. That's why like Panasonic can give you in 2000, but no other company is like, yeah, gen lock, that's an expensive feature, you have to buy $10,000 equipment. So most people don't know about it, they will not bitch about it. Time code, everybody knows and understand. Gen lock is bigger brother. Like, you will not have a pro level broadcast camera that does not even have this. Like broadcast, because they shoot for hours on end, and again, sometimes camera can run 24/7/365. Gen lock, without gen lock, your time will drift so much, you will be out by like, 4 or 5 frames, or sometimes even 1 whole minute of audio and video outsync, even though when you have time code in. So gen lock is necessary for very long shoots, and if you want to do like, something fancy like 3D or like, multiple camera working together, gen lock is needed for that. Again, companies do give you that, but they will like, hey, you have to buy pro end for that. Proper AV output, again, they will say, hey, buy our C70, more or less the same kind of frame, where you have like proper mic input inbuilt into the camera. You do not need an external hot shoe adapter for that. It has full size HDMI output, things of that nature, like where it's like, creature comfort. Dual record, now that's a pro level requirement, meaning, especially think of this, let's say you are talking about any practical effect that has like boom bam blim going on to it. It has to be captured in one go. You're not gonna reset and redo it again and again. You have only one shot. So in those sort of scenario, having dual card slots which can do simultaneous recording is compulsory. This cannot do that, because again, cards are not of the similar capacity. One is ludicrously fast, another is very slow. So what they can give you, the best offering they're gonna give you is like, hey, record your raw in one system and have like, proxy file. Now again, proxy can go very high resolution in nowadays, but you have to be mindful of that. That's the only thing you can do. So if you are like, I needed that raw for that setup, good luck. And if you complain about it, Canon is like, hey, you have to buy pro end for that. So these sort of little things. Now, one of the most annoying things is that it has poor power management, meaning the battery is too underpowered, or maybe they have not bothered redesigning the PCB because they have unlocked the processor. So I'm pretty sure the processor is spiking too much. So if you try to do 8K 60 FPS, camera will still work, but it will disable autofocus because it cannot provide power to the motors. It will disable the hot shoe mount. It's like it cannot provide the power, and you may have dropouts because it's like power management is not there. So it's like, how the heck you're supposed to do that? Well, you have to put USB power delivery externally, then it can do that. And people have tested it. Again, it does not require like mine Canon only power delivery. You can deal with this, but it is one of those things that like any professional will look at it as like, no. And again, Canon can simply say, hey dude, there is a reason why we have huge battery for this. You want something tiny and you want something powerful, again, this is your option. So this is a very smart move from Canon's point of view, from a business point of view. It's like, I'm gonna leapfrog every single mirrorless industry, and I will not harm my own sales. And I'm pretty sure it's not selling that much. Again, C series cameras are what we call high margin, low volume product, meaning they're not moving 10,000 units of that. But if this sells, like I'm pretty sure, and right now already in BNS site is showing top selling, and I'm pretty sure, again, this is one of those cameras like it has no limitations. It's like buy it and forget it. It's like there is no limitation in this camera. I'm like, I can buy it right now, start going from full HD to 4K, and then 3 or 4 years from now when everybody is switching to 8K, I can like, oh, my camera got it, and 60 FPS still would be more than good enough for what I do. So it's like, I got this. So it's a really smart move from Canon's point of view, and Canon is not cannibalizing its like, you know, sales of high-end equipment, because again, people who understand importance of dual recording, they will never compromise for this. People who understand the importance of gen lock, they will not compromise on this. Proper AV output, again, if you have like, you know, external monitor switch, again, most of the cinema suits, they're like, hey, we have this sort of system. Again, you can go even higher end cinema series lineup like C500 or things of that nature. It has proper SDI output. Again, if you don't know what SDI output is, you don't need it. But if you do, Canon would be like, hey, there is a reason we have C series, expensive C series. So that's the whole point of it. And it does have okay rolling shutter. Do not expect this rolling shutter to be like, you know, global shutter. Right now there is only one camera that has true global shutter, that is basically Komodo Dragon from Red. And again, it is mind-boggling, like especially in some scenes where it does show that you need that global shutter, you'll be like, wow. Especially VFX. Now it's like, if global shutter is that awesome, then why the heck everybody is not doing that? It's a supply demand issue. It's like, because silicon manufacturing is not limited to only few people. As in like on semiconductor, Canon and Sony, like only few corporations exist that can make their own high quality silicon. If everybody is requiring like, you know, non-global shutter, that will be mass produced, and every other company is like, they have to, you know, bite the bullet and deal with it. So global shutter is the only thing that's missing. And again, I do not blame that, because right now there is only one camera company that I can think of that does global shutter, unless you are dealing with industrial sector, that they need global shutter. You need global shutter if you are driving, you know, autonomous cars. You need that. So global shutter is one of those things that is, again, I do expect in the future that is the only next big thing left. But it's kind of amazing, like smart move from Canon. I am like genuinely shocked by this. This is like, take it and go. It's not even like, oh, I can't do, you know, any proper monitoring because it does not have vector graph. It's like, vector graph, go. Everything that C series has, the control seat and control feed here. It's mind-bogglingly awesome. So this is why we need competition. The more Sony kicked Canon's ass, the better Canon products came out. And I'm pretty sure now next year or two, we're gonna get some amazing Sony product. Let's hope so. So this was my presentation on Canon R5C. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice if you want to show extra disappointment, and leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.